Hello, everyone. So, for today's weekly introduction video, I really wanted to focus on the discussion rules. The last 2 weeks, I've been getting a lot of emails just with questions about how to approach the discussion rules once we get now into week 3, and also just some general questions about the previous discussion board as well, but that one we weren't using the discussion rules, so I'm going to really focus on the discussion rules here and streamline it towards some of those questions as well. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes just to record a video that you could take a look at your convenience to know exactly what I am expecting of you with these discussion boards. First and foremost, it's really important to understand that the way that I do discussion forums in my classes may be quite different than some of you are used to. Some of you might be more used to from previous online classes or even remote live classes a different type of discussion forum, which is just ask the basic question that comes straight from the textbook, you answer it, and maybe you reply to a couple of classmates. Mine are so much more involved than that. They're much more involved than that for a few important reasons. I'll go into that in just a second. But understand that mine, you will have a main post that'll be due on Thursdays every single week. It's going to follow what you see on your screen right here, the discussion rules. There's going to be multiple facets to the discussion rules, multiple things that you are going to respond to. These questions that I ask you in the discussion prompt are not going to be complete questions that you could just find in your reading for the week. Some of it you will be able to, but some of it you might need to use some extra resource that I give you, maybe a YouTube video or an article or something like that. And every single one of these weeks, you will likely see at least one question that you would look at the reading and say, I don't really see that there. That's because I am strategically asking you certain things, highlighting this section, that you would need to do internet research on. That's part of your requirement for the discussion forums. So to the discussion rules, you are going to answer the prompt that I give you using 4 different things in your main post, and you'll see them right here. They add up to 60% of your grade for your main post. Your main post is due on Thursdays. In your main post, you are going to have a section that is going to come from your readings, from your textbook. That is this first section right here. The section needs to be 150 words or more in total. I do expect that you cite in this section, but not formal citations. You can just tell me the page number that something comes from or the subsection in the chapter reading that something comes from, so on and so forth. Informal citations, but I do want to see things cited. 150 words or more, and this comes from the textbook most specifically, but any information that I am providing to you. So anything that you see in the module for the week that is there, I'm providing to you, whether that's the textbook reading or whether that's an article or a YouTube video, that all counts towards this first section. The second section is going to be internet research. The first section, information I provide to you. The second section is all research that you do on your own. The research that you do can come from things that you would Google. It could come from Psychology Today, for example. It shouldn't come from Wikipedia. It should come from something credible. Make sure you evaluate the source. But it doesn't have to come from a scholarly journal article like it might be for a research paper that we might be doing later in the semester. This can come straight from your normal Google research. So as you look through the discussion question for this week or for any week, you might see something or some things that, he wants us to discuss object permanence. I don't see object permanence in this week's chapter, cluing you in that I want you to do some research. This is most applicable to some questions that I've gotten this week, in that I will never expect you to look ahead in the chapter. So yes, I know that later in our book, it's going to talk about Piaget and object permanence in more detail. I'm not expecting you to look forward. That's designed so that that's the part of this question that you would do some internet research on. And then the other important thing right off the bat for the basics of what I'm expecting, really important, make sure you answer every question I ask you. Every week I'm going to ask more than one. almost every week, you're going to see maybe 3 questions where one comes right from the textbook, one might come right from internet research, and the last one often will be something that you're going to have your own stance on. You're going to do a lot of application there. You might do some research for this weekend on breastfeeding versus bottle feeding, for example. Make sure you answer each one of those 3 questions. Don't skip any. Too often I see points get lost because someone skipped parts of the question. I'm asking you multiple questions. Make sure each one is answered. Even if that means you're going over the 150 words or more requirement, make sure you answer each question fully. The other 2 things that you need, and each one of them is worth 10% of your grade, is a YouTube video and a meme. And I'm going to approach those together and just differentiate a couple things. The YouTube video should in some way, quote unquote, support your stance. What I mean by that is it's perfectly fine if your YouTube video is just based off of answering one of the 3 questions. It has to in some way relate to the material, whereas the meme should summarize your stance. The meme should summarize what you posted about. So find the meme after you write your post. Write your post, take a look at your stance, take a look at what you wrote about, take a look at your thesis, and say, okay, what are some good keywords to type into Google Images, meme for this and this. Maybe you want to summarize your post focusing on object permanence, or focusing on nature versus nurture, or focusing on breastfeeding versus bottle feeding based off of how intertwined you had everything in your post. It should summarize that. As far as the meme's concerned, if you need 2 memes to summarize that, sometimes someone needs a pro and a con meme or something like that, that's fine. I just ask that you not get carried away. 2 is the most that you should have for this. To the YouTube video, it should be 5 minutes or less. It's perfectly fine if the clip that you found is longer than 5 minutes. Just then tell us 5 minutes to watch of that video. So for example here, you have maybe a 15-minute video. You say, hey, I want everyone to watch from 2:13 to 7:13. That's perfectly fine. It doesn't have to be shorter in total length. You just tell us a 5-minute clip to watch. And it's fine if your video was shorter than 5 minutes too. With the meme and the video, and I can't stress this part enough, I love when my students are creative, when you use things like from pop culture, maybe use a viral video, a TikTok, a clip from a TV show or a movie, things like that. Make sure it fits. For the YouTube video, it has to complement something you're talking about. Make sure it fits. The meme has to summarize your stance. Make sure it fits. But if you could find something that fits, that also is using something from pop culture, maybe it's a clip from something on the top 10 in Netflix right now. And well, someone else in the class might have just watched that then. So they might see that clip that you have and say, oh, I really like that show. Click play. They watch that 5-minute clip and they say, oh, this is exactly about what we're talking about in this week's discussion. And that helps what I call them moments. It really helps someone to help to understand everything that we're talking about. It's easier to understand something through something that we would watch for our own pleasure. Perfectly fine if you can't think of something pop culture, use something from a TED Talk or a documentary or something like that. You don't have to find something that's pop culture, but being creative, if you can be, is something I would very much encourage you to do. I enjoy seeing those. The only other thing I need to mention for the YouTube video and the meme, please use some discretion with what you include. Do keep in mind that everyone has very different opinions. There are some sensitive topics that maybe we shouldn't be looking at. Maybe we shouldn't be bringing something in that has a lot of curse words or something like that. With that said as well, we're adults in the class. It's perfectly fine if there is a curse word in it. Please don't think that you shouldn't have that. Just use your own discretion when it comes to that. Here's a little template of how things might look. You can just follow that, read through that on your own. That isn't something I've gotten a lot of questions on. The last 40% of your grade is about replying to classmates. So this first 60%, 20, 20, 10, and 10, is due by Thursday end of day. The other 40% is all due by Sunday end of day. You should be replying to 3 classmates. Some of you might be used to classes that only require 2. I require 3 replies. And each reply needs to contribute something significant. What I mean by significant, well, in the description, I say it's a 50-word requirement, but I want to be honest with you, especially if you're taking the time to watch this video that I know is going to be close to 15 minutes. I don't count words for replies. I do count words for main posts. Make sure your main posts reach that 150 words or more. The 50 words is a guide for the replies. What I look for is that you are contributing something to your reply. If you just say, I agree with you, or I like your video, that isn't going to get credit. I mean, if it was something as short as that, it wouldn't even get partial credit. I need you to say, I like your post. Yes, that's fine. That's great. But why? 2 to 3 sentences of detail about why is what I'm looking for. Make sure you add something to the why. You're contributing something significant in your reply. It should be building a discussion. This is all about reaching the creating phase of learning, which I'm going to get to in 1 second. Before I get there, the other 10% of your reply posts is about maintaining your posts. This is actually really simple, even though I know it can be a little confusing when you read it. What I'm asking for you to do when it comes to maintaining your posts is make sure you look back, not just at all of your other classmates, find your 3 to reply to. Make sure you go back and look at your own forum. Just read through and see who replied to you. I require that you respond to at least one person that replied to you. It doesn't have to be every single person. I require that you reply to at least one person that replied to you, just responding to them. And that could be something like saying, thank you, I really appreciate that. I agree with what you added to this. Maybe they included a new YouTube video or something. I took a look at the video. I thought it was the perfect example of what we were talking about. Perfect. The only other thing that I need to say is reply to at least one person, but please reply to any question that you're asked. Those are rare. That's not going to happen often. But if one of your classmates do ask you a question in their reply, please make sure you reply to that. So it might mean that there might be 1 week where you have to reply to 2 or 3 different classmates. But I would say all but 1, maybe 2, expect that 1 is going to be perfectly fine for maintaining your forum. Just make sure you take a look and use your judgment. Last note with maintaining your forum, I won't grade forums until Tuesdays. I give you Monday just in case. I understand that these are all due Sunday, 11:59, these reply posts, which means sometimes you might get a reply that's done right at like 11:55 on Sunday night. Obviously, I couldn't expect you to take a look at your forum to maintain it in those last 5 minutes. Take a quick peek on Monday. Just make sure no one replied to you. If someone did, just give a really quick reply if you need to. The last thing is just summarizing the assignment. That's what we've been doing. That's what I've been doing in this. So the first little blurb here, I am not going to end up going into more detail about right now, but this other blurb, this is the why I do discussion forums, and they're more involved than other classes. I believe in reading the creating stage of learning. That specific part of it's probably not important to you as a student. It's important to me as a teacher. It's part of what makes me say that my students are learning. But what that means is, well, I'm not just asking you read this, answer these questions. I'm not just saying, hey, here's some questions, find the answer right from the textbook and post it here. We have review quizzes within the textbook chapters. There's other ways that we are looking at doing that. What I want you to do is think beyond that. Think outside the box. Think in addition to that. I want you to apply your learnings and even go one step further and create. That's why you're going to see a lot of questions that I'm going to ask you. Create a list on something or a strategy on something. Create, for example, for our class, a good one that you might see is create a strategy that a parent might use to help their children when their children reach this milestone. That reaches these higher stages of learning. That's why I ask these questions, is if we're doing a good job with this, then we might be learning even more than just, I read something, I memorized something, oh, I identified this. Yeah, that's going to help you a lot on the exams, but I want you to learn more than that in this class, and that's what these assignments are looking for. All that said, if you still have questions, email me. I'm always here for you. Take a look at this week's topic. I'm not going to load the topic up in this video. Just make sure you take a look at and listen to everything that I just said in this video and apply it right to those questions. You have this week multiple different questions. There's, I think, 3 or 4 different things in there that you're answering. Make sure you respond to each one of those. Make sure you don't have to use the textbook for each one. You don't have to use the internet for each one. Make sure you have both the textbook and the internet there somewhere. It's a complementary thing. You might use both to answer one of the questions, just the textbook to answer the second, just the internet for the third. Use your judgment. And if you have any other questions, shoot me an email and I'll help you.